Just kind of feeling into the week this week. A lot of people have contacted me feeling pretty stressed. So what I thought we'd do is maybe just start with just a centering sit for tonight. So you can go ahead and get comfortable and close your eyes. Again, you're always invited to lay down if you like to. Just put a pillow under your knees so that your lower back is dropping. And just take a breath or two just to notice being here, just kind of how you are in the moment. Letting yourself take your seat and just noticing how your body feels in this moment. Whatever's here is fine, conditions are such. And also just noticing your mind. Is it racing, at ease, pinched? And then just taking a note of your heart, noticing the emotions that you're having right now or the feelings that are up for you. Again, whatever's here is just due to causes and conditions today. And so for this sit, I just invite you to begin letting yourself breathe out any tension that you're noticing this evening. So you may notice some physical tension, tightness or bracing or pain. There can also be mental tension, stressful thoughts, repeating thoughts. And we can also have emotional tension. We can feel scared, anxious, or sad, or grief. Whatever you're noticing, just allow yourself to let it be here. No need to fight with it. But we don't have to hold on to it. So we just gently breathe it out on the out-breath. A very soft letting go. And it's okay if the same tension comes back again and again. It just means it's a little sticky. But there's always another breath. So we just relax and just gently breathe it out again. And at some point it will release and let go. And as we do this, we allow ourselves to empty. No need to hold on to the day's stress. It's okay to let go. Everything arises and passes away. We're not meant to hold on to it. And as our body empties, we may notice it feels a little softer, or perhaps a little quieter. Or we may notice it feels a little more spacious. And then noticing some place where it feels more quiet or more comfortable. Just allowing yourself to begin breathing there. You may breathe a space within or peace. If you still have a lot of stress, you can just keep emptying it out until things quiet down. But if you notice some peace or spaciousness, just breathing into it, letting it get as big as it likes. And you can let go of all the stories, let go of time. And you can let go of the body and just let this quiet or peace be your body. So it's as if peace is breathing. Just touching into this essential part of ourself, this deeper part. And just letting the peace just ripple out. No need to make it go anywhere. But just allowing peace quiet to just be in the world. You can imagine your peace or your quiet filling the world. Like a soft breeze. Radiating from your body, your heart, your mind. So this evening, I wanted to just kind of looking at the world and what's going on. I just wanted to focus a little bit tonight on some soothing practices that can kind of help center us. You know, normally when we're doing mindfulness work, we're working on our own mind. And so we're asked to look at the chaos in our own mind and all the busyness and all the wounding and the pain. And we're asked to sit with it and calm it down and release it if we can, open to something bigger. And yet, in these last weeks, what I've been noticing a lot and hearing a lot from people is this disruption, because these practices for our own mind aren't as up right now. What we're being asked to do is actually deal with other people's minds. It's like, oh, my mind is bad enough, but I got all that out there, right? And we're watching this feeding, this frenzy of fear and chaos and all kinds of things going around. And in psychology, we have this term, there's parts to the ego that are identified. Freud identified them as the ego, the superego, and the id. Actually, he wrote it, but it got mistranslated into id, and I think id sounded more in alignment. And so the superego is that part of you that's more like a strict librarian that's trying to keep you on task all the time, telling you to be good. And then there's your regular ego that you think of as me. And then there's this id. And the id is this kind of impulsive, reactive part of us. And some ways animalistic. It just kind of reacts. It doesn't think first. And so in psychology, when we see these kinds of patterns in the universe, in the world, the phrase we use in psychology is the id got out of the box. So normally the id's in a little box and it's kind of safe and not causing too much trouble. But right now it looks like the id's out of the box and wreaking havoc all over the world. And so Eckhart Tolle would call it the pain body, that the pain body is kind of running amok right now. And so, you know, we see this playing out in one way. There's this quote from Leo Tolstoy's where he says, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." And a lot of that's what we're seeing right now, is a lot of people saying, you change, you stop. I want to stop you. You're out of control. And it's like, yeah, when we have that emphasis over there, that actually, we don't realize it, but it actually feeds the fire. When we're trying to fix other people's minds and telling them to stop, it doesn't really work so well. And we see this a lot on Facebook and Instagram. You know, things are being fed, Twitter, all that's being fed. And so you see this fear that's just feeding itself. And in some ways, people are really working themselves up. So I wanted to talk tonight about an old teaching that helps us not get caught up in this. Yeah. And so these are practices that we can do that stabilize our mind and get us to settle. And when our mind settles, we're not feeding the id. We're not feeding the pain body. We're one person not feeding it, which is one of the ways you cool it and get it to calm down. I've talked about this before, Thich Nhat Hanh talking about this in the refugee boats during the Vietnamese refugee crisis, and how the boats that made it, the one thing he found that they could consistently point to was that there was always somebody in those boats who held their seat. So when the chaos was really going, one person said, stop, breathe, slow down. And these were the boats that made it. It's the same as when we see a parent and you see a 2-year-old who's freaking out or having a tantrum, and that 2-year-old is totally in chaos. And the parent is totally in their seat. Just like, it's going to be okay. Calm down. You know, we have that voice inside us. I like to think of that voice actually as part of our essence, that's the way our essence talks to us when we're in chaos. So these are some practices, and as I talk about them, I want you to just notice in your own body, in your own mind, how it feels to just touch into these practices, to just notice how it is inside you when you hear about them and you're reminded about them again. So the first one is to surround yourself with admirable friends. To just notice that when I surround myself with admirable friends, right? These are people who have their seat, they're calm, they're good friends, they're a good influence on you. The people who are a good influence on you. You know, it might be a friend you connect with in Zoom, even if they live across the country. A family member who you love and trust, and when you're with them, something in your system just settles. So that's the first one. We surround ourselves with admirable friends. The second one is that we engage ourselves in virtuous behavior. So we stay within our values. We don't let ourselves get sucked off into acting out. And so that can be things like you want to share a post on Facebook that really pissed you off, or Instagram or someplace, and you take that moment to stop. And, first of all, is it fake news? Have you checked it out? Probably not. It's so much easier to just be reactive. But what if you stay within your own values and you don't spread false news or painful news, anything that's feeding that pain body in that moment? And so we stay within our own virtues. And we do that within our own mind as well. Like not letting your mind split. It's so easy to make good guys and bad guys. And it's entertaining and really it has a lot of adrenaline when you let your mind go off on the bad guys. Oh, those bad guys. And I know what I would do to those bad guys. And it's like, is that really in your values? Is that a virtuous life? And so just noticing what it's like if you don't feed the pain body inside yourself or outside of yourself. You take a moment to stop. You take a moment to go outside, take a breather, shut off Facebook and walk away from it for a while. Close down that email that just got you going. So just taking that moment. And the third one is to listen and talk about things that support clarity and wisdom and ease. And so that includes getting together with friends and talking about your spiritual practice, or your favorite prayers, or your favorite books. Listening to talks of people that you admire who calm you down and give you insight and wisdom. Feeding your mind and your heart with movies that nourish you, those kinds of things. And it also means avoiding, the things that do not provide clarity or ease. So if you're on your Facebook a lot and you're scrolling through and you're just getting more and more worked up, that's probably not so helpful. You're feeding into the fear, you're getting caught up in it. What if you put down your Facebook and pick up that book you have been meaning to read for 6 months and you haven't done it? Listening to talks of spiritual teachers that you admire, meditations that help you calm down, all these kinds of things. Anything where you listen or talk about things that bring clarity and ease and wisdom. So just notice that when you think about the teachers that nourish you, the teachings that nourish you, and just really letting them in. Feels good. The next thing we can do is practice. When we get caught up in all of the chaos, a lot of times the adrenaline is so addicting that we actually can spend most of our day doing adrenaline kinds of things, and we actually don't take the time for practice. So taking time for practice, giving yourself permission to take an hour to go meditate or to take time for prayer, whatever your kind of practice is. Listening to like the recordings that I give that help people calm down, taking time to listen to a recording, some kind of practice that actually gets you back inside yourself, calms your mind, gets you centered and connected with your deeper parts, connected with God, whatever's helpful to you. So some kind of time for practice. If we practice every day, we're releasing stress in such a way that we're not accumulating it. So it's harder for that chaos to stick to us when we're calm. If we're worked up and we're not centered, that stuff sticks to us really easily. It feeds our fears and gets us going. Another great practice is noticing how things are in flux all the time, how they're temporary. So a good way that I like to do this is to notice that the dramas that I was hooked on a week ago, a day ago, that I thought were inevitably, we'll say, the end of the world, how they came and went. And they're not here. And so you could do that. You can sit back and just think of, like, what was I so freaked out about last week or yesterday? And has that moved and changed? Because when we're realizing the impermanence of these dramas, we don't take them so seriously. We start to realize that there are some bigger forces at play here. Things kind of come up as a big bubble and they often slide back. Or they come up and then somebody meets them. Some kind of container meets it. You know, I was thinking about last week, people were very upset about the idea that foreign students were going to be sent back home because the universities weren't going to be meeting. And, you know, a lot of people had outcry about it, a lot of phone calls, and all of a sudden, okay, no, that's not happening. That's not happening. And this has happened over and over again, that these dramas are temporary. So just holding our seat, remembering that. And what's really beautiful is if you can remember something is temporary in the middle of its arising. So right as the news is reporting it, right as you see it come across your screen, to just have the thought, next week, this will be different. And that can sometimes unhook you from that drama so that you're not feeding it yourself. And so as we take this time to calm ourselves, to get off the merry-go-round, you know, to settle our system, the other thing we can do that helps us is to act, to do some kind of action. One of the things we know in psychology is that when there's a lot of chaos or trauma or fear floating around, that people who do actions, who act in the face of that, actually have less trauma in their system than people who freeze and allow the wave to just come over them. So once you're settled, coming into your heart and just really settling with what's mine to do, what feels right to do here, and letting it just organically come up. For each of us, it's very, very different. You know, it might be you bake I know somebody who bakes banana breads for people in her neighborhood. So it might be something like that. Or, this week I heard about a friend who, for her political involvement, she's a knitter. And she loves knitting dolls of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG dolls. And so she knits them for a political organization that she belongs to. And if you make a certain donation, you get a knitted RBG doll. So that's her thing. She just loves knitting. She's just like, this is my way to help. And they've gotten increased. You know, they made so much money off my dolls. So that made her really happy. You know, it could be anything. It could be you call your senators or you call Twitter and you say, hey, you know, stop promoting hate speech. You know, I just noticed this week Twitter decided that they're going to start to rein in some of these accounts that are really spreading hate speech. So anything that feels organic to you, that feels real to you, it will make you feel like you're doing something, and it makes you feel like you're not a victim. Makes you feel like you're not a victim. It can also be prayer. You may sit and do loving kindness practice or pray for people. the mothers in Portland who are standing arm in arm, you know, the officers that are confronting them. You know, I did this practice earlier this week, and it was so powerful. It's known as a bowing practice. It's a practice of acceptance. And so for me, I was really kind of stirred up by what was happening in Portland. You know, the mothers, and then the forces that come out, and then, you know, unmarked vehicles, and fathers coming with leaf blowers because people are being gassed. And there was just so much chaos in that, and so much chaos in me around it. And I just took this practice after not acting out, after not reacting, and I just did a bow to it. I just literally bowed to the whole thing. And I stayed in that bow for a few minutes. And at first, I could feel the racing going through my mind, anger, non-acceptance. But then as I deepened the bow, something released, something softened. And what was beautiful in my mind was to watch how, when what I like to call Maureen Inc. kind of got out of the way, suddenly there was all of this compassion and tears and sadness. And it was for the forces that had come. It was for the mothers. It was for the fathers. It was for Black Lives Matter. There was just this deep, everyone belonged in this sadness. Everyone belonged in the care. And out of that care for everyone, again, no bad guys, certain actions began to arise in my mind that felt in alignment for me. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to help. But it was coming from a place of belonging and love, and not othering, not good guys and bad guys. Everybody belonged in that moment. So if you're called to something like a bowing practice, it can change your mind pretty quickly when you stop fighting with what is, and you accept it as a teacher, as your work, as something you're meant to engage without fighting. So there's this quote from George Bernard Shaw: "Those who cannot change their mind cannot change anything. Those who cannot change their mind cannot change anything." So if you don't change your mind, and your mind is filled with fear and chaos and maybe hatred and who knows what collapsing, then your mind is feeding the pain body. So if you can change your mind, you'll feel a lot better. You start to calm, and like a good parent, people around you start to calm. Your Facebook page calms, right? Or Instagram or Twitter, whatever it might be. And you're one of the people who's now lending their heart, their mind, and their body to helping the id cool, to helping it calm down and get back in the box. Go take a nap. Yeah. We need you. We need your peace of mind. We need your clarity. We need your wisdom right now. And you can encourage the same in your friends and family to do what brings them peace. Not that they have to do what you do, but what brings them peace. Yeah. Here's this quote I found actually today from Jack Kornfield, which I thought was beautiful. "To bow to the fact of our life's sorrows and betrayals is to accept them, to accept what is. And from this deep gesture, we discover that all life is workable. As we learn to bow, we discover that the heart holds more freedom and compassion than we could ever imagine. I'll read it one more time. To bow to the fact of our life's sorrows and betrayals is to accept them, to accept what is. And from this deep gesture, we discover that all life is workable. As we learn to bow, we discover that the heart holds more freedom and compassion than we could ever imagine. So these practices that are self-care and also cultivate wisdom, being with admirable friends, being in virtuous behavior, listening and talking about the things that bring clarity and ease, practicing every day some kind of practice, even if it's just going outside for a walk to settle your mind and heart. Noticing that it's always changing. It's always changing. So you don't have to get too worked up about today's drama. And then from your practice, from your ease, finding what actions feel right to you so that you don't feel like a victim in this. That you feel empowered and you feel like you're part of the solution. And so just taking a moment to feel that. What's it like to connect with these practices? Good friends, good words, clarity. And just notice what that does with your body, your heart. And how different that is from feeding the pain body, getting riled up and scared and calling 12 people to complain about it. You have a choice here. No one can tell you what to do with your own mind and body and heart. And the more settled you are, the more wisdom will be available to you. The quieter we become, the easier it is to hear the wisdom inside. And we let that carry us through. Whatever happens in these weeks, we let that carry us through. So we have a couple of minutes. Any questions or thoughts? Yeah, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
I heard a great quote from Kendi, Dr. Kendi, that was from a movie. I don't remember which one. And he said, "Fear is not real. Danger is real, but fear is a choice."
Thanks.
I really like that.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? And coming together on these Wednesday evenings, and we just sit together and we practice together. There's a certain ease, a certain love that's available. And to not forget each other. that we rest in each other. So let's go ahead and let's just do a dedication, just kind of a mindful moment of intention. So you can close your eyes if you like. And just this idea that our practice, that we can come into these practices of connecting with admirable friends, listening to teachings that bring clarity and ease, wisdom. We can practice. We can be part of the energy that's not feeding the fire, the wildfire that's going across the nation right now, the world. We can be a cooling agent in our own mind and heart. And as we sit in this peace, in this quiet, in our own essence, that this peace can ripple out from us, that we can radiate this peace to the world. Filling it with this clarity, this love. And may it ripple out beyond us so that other people catch the scent. Other people are inspired to touch into their own forms of ease and sanity and refuge. And that the fires begin to cool. So that all beings, particularly the human beings right now, remember their true nature. Remember who they really are. And we come back to our sanity, our connection, our interbeing with each other, and come home to the best of who we are, not the most afraid. Well, thank you, everybody. And yeah, I hope you have a sweet and wonderful week. And don't let the dharma or drama bug get you. Keep cooling, keep cooling. We need this cooling on the planet right now. We get to be the rain.